I'm going to go ahead and bring them on now. So we have Mike Abernathy from NSCA, which we just mentioned. We have Anthony Meany from Pearl Technologies and Mark Corbin from Vanco. So we'll pull them on as soon as we get a second. So here we go. Hi, guys. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hello, great to be here.
I'm excited to have you guys on. So first of all, I'm going to have you each go around, talk a little bit about who you are and what you do. Mark, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Mark Corbin. I am president of Vanco. Vanco is a audio video manufacturer, speakers, networking, video components. So it's a pleasure to be on, and thank you for the invite.
Perfect. And Mark, I do think that maybe the wrong microphone is selected. You're coming in a little bit weak. So I'm going to move to Anthony. Do you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, good afternoon, Anthony. I'm the president at Pearl Technology. We have 4 lines of business: audio, visual, integration. We also have 2 data centers, and we have a cybersecurity operations center, and then we also have an MSP. So kind of a mixed bag here, coming at you mostly from the cybersecurity standpoint. I'm also our chief information security officer.
Perfect. And Mike.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here. Mike Abernathy, Director of Business Resources with NSCA. And if you're not familiar with NSCA, we are a trade association of 800 systems integrators like Pearl Technology. Pearl's a member of NSCA. And so our job is to help systems integrators at the end of the day run their business, key benchmarks, metrics, and so forth. So looking forward to sharing some thoughts today and learning more as well.
Perfect. I'm just going to throw this out to the general, and whoever wants to answer this first can. So in your opinions, which verticals or project types are showing the most tangible AV security crossover right now? And why are those deals in particular working well right now?
I can go ahead and start if that's okay with Mark and Anthony. You know, when you look at, and I'm going to use some of the data that Alex shared here just recently. When you look at opportunity for Pro AV, there's a lot of opportunity in the security market. When you look at NSCA membership, 80% of our members, yes, do AV, but 70% of our members also are in security, physical security. And when you look at NSCA's most recent data, 20% of our members' revenue comes from security. And then, but that's not including, you know, another 20% that comes from fire, emergency, mass notification, life safety, and those type of systems as well. So, but when you look at the overall data for the construction industry and growth, 40% of the construction is, when it comes to low voltage technology, 40% of that low voltage technology growth and so forth comes from security. So there's a great opportunity for AV integrators to get into that space. And I think Anthony and Mark will probably be able to share a little bit more of those key markets. But I know light retail, hospitality, of course, K-12 is always an opportunity in that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mike. There's a ton of opportunities. More specifically, being a manufacturer, we see a lot of MDU type situations, multi-dwelling units, where we're seeing a lot of AV mixed with security. Also, a lot of conceptual bar and restaurants, right? A lot of times we're seeing the ambiance settings needing to change and the feeling, but we're also, when that AV guys, he's having to deal with all the security implementations that take place as well. So we see that a lot. We also see this in government facilities. A lot of times, if it's schools or education, we see a lot of times AV or Pro AV guys coming into a situation where they get tied in or possibly need to be assisting with the security team as well. So those are kind of direct verticals we see a lot of that movement in.
Yeah, for us, the convergence has mainly been in the industries with heavy compliance requirements, which you'll hear the word CMMC, but essentially that's the defense industrial base, requiring, certain security controls. So the projects that's resulting in is a lot of network security. So putting the AV IP on kind of like segmented networks and putting those security controls in place, because they need the products to prove that it is secure for their own packages that are getting submitted, and that's where we're finding the most integration.
That makes a lot of sense. So, for those AV companies that are starting to explore security, what do you all see as the smartest, like low risk entry point with low barriers to entry? And what pitfalls do you guys think that they should try to avoid early on?
And I think for just getting started, even in the IT space, we call it dog fooding. So I would challenge every AV company to practice their security hygiene and really integrate it. So make sure your passwords are strong, your network segmentation strong. And if you feel really good about an install, have a pen tester come and try to hack in and put yourself to the test, because if you feel good about your product, that'll be your differentiator, and people are obviously looking for security. So that's low entry, right? It doesn't cost anything just to be secure yourself. But then the second part is to find a partner. When you're in the security space, if you don't have certain credentials like a CISP, you're going to miss out on the credentials people are looking for and expecting the answers from. So that can be too much, to a bridge too far. So I would easily get a partner that can be your credentialed professional, if you will.
Yeah, and I can kind of roll off what Anthony was talking about, because basically if you're an AV provider, you want to centralize yourself with a system that the customer needs. At the same time, you want to allow and permit security, but you have to be careful because there could be licenses that you need, there could be certain permits required, and those type of things could be a gray issue that you're not aware on. So to Anthony's point, building a relationship at that point with a security integrator to bring in as a consultant or as a partner is huge, or obviously realizing as a integrator yourself and as a company, then maybe this is a channel we need to go down and figure out as well and put money and time into it. So, there's two options there. And I think it's really what is the best partnership for your company and, what is available for yourself. But really good question.
Yeah, and I want to go back. Both of you mentioned this partnership. If you're an AV integrator, is partnering with maybe adjacent technologies, maybe it's another security integrator in your area, an IT integrator, partnering with them to kind of fill those maybe skill sets that maybe have a gap in. A couple other things to look at is when it comes to licensure, right? When it comes to state licensing for security versus AV. NSCA, we have our guide for state licensing, which is part of membership, and it goes literally state by state. And when you look at that, it's usually sometimes there's some low voltage, limited energy, but a lot of it has to do from state to state with security. Right. And so just ensuring that you have the right licensing to do a security project, a physical security project in your state or adjacent states if you're doing business, outside of your local state there. But, other things to look at is, especially in the K-12 market, ANSI guidelines, as well as upcoming legislative mandates like Alyssa's law and so forth. So if you're familiar with the past K-12 guidelines, the Partner Alliance for Safer Schools that NSCA is a part of, there's a lot of good information in there to help you be prepared for that and understand, and ultimately how to kind of consult with a local school district to ensure that they're following the Alyssa's laws and other legislative mandates and so forth with that.
Absolutely fair. So I think that, at least from what I have heard about some of the problems when it comes to AV and security kind of starting to converge, is that there's a lot of channel friction. So in your opinions, how do the manufacturer, integrator, distributor partnerships create mutual value rather than some of the friction?
Yeah, I can take this first. I think the biggest thing is you kind of go back to partnership, not just distribution is really big for your partnership on, they're not just a reseller. A lot of distributors will be there for guidance and assistance. So multiple distributors you can walk into, probably even have a design team that can personally assist you if you don't have that capability built into yourself as an integrator. I think it's also really important to familiarize yourself within your distribution of what categories you're really strong with as an integrator, so that you can build a plan together to support each other. And at the same time, sometimes those distributors can build a network with you to be able to work with a local security integrator if you're an AV, or vice versa if you're security getting into AV. So I think those are really important to focus on, and to have as a manufacturer. Each manufacturer can support an integrator and distributor differently. So to learn those levels, I think, is really important, because multiple distributors and manufacturers work closely, as well as integrators and manufacturers. So understanding those relationships are really important, and that helps you build that unified team once you get that project going. So.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I think part of that is, Mark, you're right on with that, is also, working as an integrator, just to ensure that I'm going to use the term go to market strategy, right? Just to make sure from sales that you have everything you need from a sales perspective as an integrator, as you're moving into security or whatever the new market or opportunity is. And then also looking at it from a technical perspective, do you have the right certifications and so forth? And that all, plays nicely with, your distributor or your manufacturer can help you with all those resources as well. But it's really having all that in line across from, when you get into servicing and recurring revenue and those models, as well as having those tools. So, Marky, well said.
Thanks.
I'd throw maybe a little more of a radical approach on the distributor that I've seen in other industries, whether it's industrial control systems, Internet of Things, is that the distributor needs to be pretty open in collecting feedback on the vulnerabilities. So much so that you've seen in the IT space for the last 15 years bug bounty programs. So you need to collect the flaws in your technology as soon as possible. Otherwise, people are going to be pushing out technologies that lack that security in place. And then the distributors that do have that security, we have no choice but to use that other distribution channel. So collecting feedback and creating best standards per partnership is important. Otherwise, they're just kind of operating in the dark if they're not getting these vulnerabilities.
Fair. And Mike, you mentioned like managed services. So, in your opinions, which managed or subscription-based services, which are of course very popular in all industries right now, not just AV, which are realistic in that kind of converged AV and security model?
Yeah, I'm not going to probably speak to any specific
Yeah, that's
company
fine.
or anything like that, Steph. But yeah, actually, our NSCA's Emerging Technology Committee, we just had a discussion on this a month or two ago, and really looking at unified security platforms and really looking at that whole concept out there. And kind of looking at even the master systems integrator doing more than just one system. And so, and how to integrate multiple security, life safety building systems. So everything from access control to intercom, lighting, paging, sensors, a lot of the stuff that Anthony was mentioning as well, into a single interface. That's pretty complicated, right? That's a single pane of glass. But I think that's an opportunity where you can start becoming, as an integrator, that one handshake or that one point of contact when it comes to technologies. And really, there's multiple opportunities for obviously the monitoring side of it with recurring revenue and the other managed services, room occupancy and sensors and so forth, with the environment of the space. So there's a lot of opportunities for recurring revenue. It's just making sure you can position yourself to, have the right partnerships to be able to leverage and perform those services.
I'd throw in there, from a MRR standpoint, you can put in subscriptions for the firmware management, the monitoring, and just keeping the devices secure, especially if that AV network is segmented. Whoever owns that entire enterprise needs somebody to own that part. So if you can tell them, hey, we'll own this part of the enclave, we'll keep it secure, we'll patch, we'll do the firmware, and make sure that the least privilege remote access, because that's always a big topic, is who's remoting into this stuff is being monitored. That can go a long way too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to Anthony's point. The biggest thing with reoccurring fees for an integrator is definitely remote technology. But to your point, having that access being very restricted and monitored is important. But if you think about just hospitality and retail alone, just the scalability, just in that area of constant remote capability, you have a lot of high turnover, you have a lot of sometimes employee changeover. So having remote accessibility is kind of an easy way to provide a monitoring fee for integrators. And so many different systems have it, whether it be an AVIP system to an audio security system. It all can be integrated remotely. So it's a very easy way for the integrator to start causing a reoccurring monthly fee.
Absolutely. As we're seeing this convergence grow, I'm interested to see, in your opinions, which certifications or training programs are becoming must-have. Are there any that are manufacturer specific, or as well as like other ones that might be more regional or even national? If you guys had any insight into that.
I could speak just from the MSP security standpoint. As you're converging into IP, there's some basics that you hear about CompTIA. It's just the fundamental knowledge. They're low barrier to entry. I mean, somebody could train on it for maybe a month and a half and have that basic, but those credentials actually hold a little bit of weight for, proving you have an awareness. So I'm a fan of those more simplistic roadmaps, which CompTIA has. But again, having a partner to do the CISP that we talked about earlier, or more professional security, I don't recommend that for maybe an AV integrator, but having that partner for sure.
Yeah, Anthony, I agree. And I think it depends on the integrator. I think it depends on the systems that you're installing, right? Or the vertical markets, right? If you're in healthcare and things like that, you may be required, even as an AV integrator, to have, CIS controls or NIST framework or ISO, IEC standards, all those type of cyber frameworks and so forth, which is well above my pay grade. I just know enough to kind of share about it and how important it is. But other resources for integrators to move from AV to security is from resources from like As Is, or resources from SIA, the Security Industries Association, and I know PSA out there as well has a lot of good resources that can help you move from AV to security on the technical side of things, right? From the business side of things, the benchmarks and metrics that an integrator should follow are really similar. The utilization and those type of things are really the same concepts and applications.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to piggyback off what Mike said. It's really important to determining when you go into the job, what requirements are ahead of time and what you're comfortable with. So whether it's a package that going into that job, and you find out it needs to be TAA compliant or it needs to be something of those lines, give yourself that time to research that in your bid before you go in just, all in. Make sure you have yourself comfortable with a portfolio you're good with. And as you expand that, it's important to just research it and make sure you're compliant, as they've all said. But there's so many different situations that you have to have certain compliances with. So it's really good to know what your portfolio is. And then if you need to expand it, make sure you're giving yourself that time to do that.
Yeah.
Very
Just
fair.
make sure there's no gotchas in those agreements, right?
Right.
And so forth that you may, and if something doesn't look right, go to your legal counsel or whatever to maybe get some more information on that. But you don't want to get into a point where you're not profitable on the project because you didn't see a lot of the fine print, if you will.
In your opinions, how can some of those smaller firms close their knowledge gap that's kind of there without overextending themselves? Because I think that that's kind of one of the issues that I've heard out there too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes back to even working with your distributor and manufacturer partnerships, right? Making sure that you're utilizing training materials, knowing exactly how those materials work with other companies or with other products. And I think that's kind of goes back to that, really building that module of, manufacturer, distributor, integrator. And it's really important because, then you understand the tech and the spec of what you're doing.
Great. Partnerships. It's the only way. I mean, this stuff's changing at light speed. There's just no way. You don't want your ego to get in the way thinking you can do it all. Find the partner. Then you feel comfortable, maybe take it in-house. But in IP space, things that we're going to do 6 months from now don't even exist today. So you got to leverage partners, whether that's the engineers from your products or a local security company that you can partner with.
Yeah, I agree. And, and just not partnering with, adjacent technologies or other integrators and, in different technologies and so forth, but also looking at maybe it's outsourcing the design, the engineering, the installation, but partnering and being more that you don't have to be the expert, but really be the curator of all that. And going back to that one handshake or one throat to choke, however you want to put it there, but to have that good structure really from, selling to design to installation all the way through support. And also another resource, especially for the smaller integrators, I'm going to put a plug out for NSCA, but just leveraging NSCA. If you're a member of NSCA, leverage the resources that we have here from our data sets, our benchmarks and metrics, as well as other resources that can kind of point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. I'm interested to see as well, in your opinions, of a trend, a technology, a dynamic that you think is going to define AV security convergence in 2026. And I'm talking both like physical and security here, or cyber here. So whatever, your opinions are on that. Because like you mentioned, Anthony, like it really is changing at kind of a light speed.
For me, you'll hear the term EDR in the IP space, but then there's this trend towards XDR, which is involving a whole bunch of IoT and OT devices. And essentially what these XDR systems are doing is pulling in everything. So whether it's your laptop, your surveillance camera, your AV equipment, all into one pane of glass for the security departments to look at. So manufacturers creating their logs in a manner that they can be fed into these systems. As soon as that happens, it'll bypass any current security posture in place because that'll quickly absorb all the audiovisual security right into XDR and provide that visibility everybody's seeking. They just want that one pane. So as soon as that opens up, everyone's going to move that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really understanding that security is, it's going to get more tied in to building experiences with AV throughout. It's just going to continue. And to Anthony's point with IP, just the experiences alone that you're going to understand through security and AV together, talking larger, even commercial scale security cameras are getting to the point where they're studying foot traffic and releasing data to help you understand better lighting mechanisms, better, when to change temperatures, all kinds of things. So this is all going to keep evolving, as we all know. And I think it's just really important to realize that as we move on in any kind of space, the two are really getting tied together more and more, and really concentrate on those partnerships that you can form.
Yeah, and I think really we've talked about it here quite a bit, is the partnerships, and really the partnership over independence is something that I like to, that mindset shift rather. but also being, we mentioned it earlier, service-led, not product-led, as well as that curator over the systems as an expert. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. One thing I've been saying for many years, there's a lot of opportunity because every building in commercial building needs a fire alarm system, right? They have a lot of code-driven technologies and systems that you need to have occupancy and so forth. So use those type of systems to get in the door, and then you can come back in later and sell that AV system, for the performing arts center or for classrooms or whatever it may be from an AV perspective. So I think that's a good way to leverage the opportunity and security and so forth.
Absolutely. So I know we're winding down here. So the last thing I'm going to ask all of you is any final thoughts that you would like to give our lovely audience, as well as where people can find you and your organizations online after this. Mark, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think final thought is this is a great conversation. I think it's really fun to see the emerging technologies of AV and the security space. Obviously, importance of partnerships, learning your boundaries, I think is really important, and learning what you're educated on, but then learning to expand it. So it's been a fun conversation to have. You can find Vanco at vanco1.com, as well as on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter at Vanco International. And again, my name is Mark Corbin, and thanks for the time. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Anthony?
Yeah, as we're talking about the convergence, I think it's just learning where you converged to. So the IP space has been doing, stuff for the defense industrial base or HIPAA or FERPA, you name the framework. So wherever it is you've landed now, being in the IP space, it's just finding that partnership to make sure that your products are secure and integrated into that posture. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Anthony Meany. So appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. And Mike?
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity today here. But also, I kind of going back to Anthony and Mark is have a plan as an AV integrator. Have a plan moving forward. Ask those right questions. Leverage resources like NSCA, as well as your manufacturers and distributors. So just have a plan moving forward. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, and you can find NSCA at nsca.org.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for your time, and thank you for being part of our security symposium. I so very appreciate it. Thanks.